The betrayal that destroyed Bungie.
Bungie was once the most beloved game developer in the world. They're
literally the best in the world behind Blizzard. Halo 3, World of Warcraft, unbeatable.
Studio that created Halo, the minds that forged Destiny. But things have changed.
Destiny was... If you play Destiny, you have a mental illness.
So drastically over the last few years that the company is...
After Halo Reach, Bungie ceased to exist.
Almost unrecognizable. Huge waves of layoffs, lawsuits from ex-employees, and hush money flying around to keep everyone quiet. It's a conspiracy that goes all the way to the top of the company.
Baboon Warfare says 5,000 active subs or all time. 5,000 active subs. We're rank 150 on Twitch after 1 month of streaming, thanks to our CFO and shareholders. If you guys are not here, don't worry. Okay, you may be late to the stream, but you're early to the movement. Twitch.tv/Philion TV.
When one man, one spy, seized control of it all and has been driving Bungie into the ground ever since. A shell of its former self, Bungie is ready to release their next game, Marathon, in 2025.
I was honestly really excited for this. A lot of people were shitting on it, saying it didn't really have that much motion. It's an extraction shooter, which is a really niche game mode, like Tarkov. And part of the appeal to a game like Tarkov is its complexity, that you get thrown into the game and there's so much unexplained where you kind of have to figure it out, which is how you build a core audience for your game. Whereas Marathon is a diet, dumbed down, watered down version of that with some flashy graphics and what I thought was a unique art style, but as we're about to find out and learn, it seems to be ripped from one or maybe a few artists in particular.
But the hype is already gone. It would all begin with one deal which would change Bungie's fate forever, which happened back in 1999 when Bungie was acquired by a little-known company called Microsoft.
Why would you name your company Microsoft? Why not Macro Hard?
For years, Bungie had been an up-and-coming rock star in gaming. They developed a few huge hits, but needed financial backing to get their latest project, Halo, off the ground. Microsoft offered them the money and resources they needed, as well as the support of the Microsoft brand. On paper, it was the opportunity of a lifetime, but the transition didn't go as smoothly as they'd hoped. Bungie wasn't used to deadlines and business plans, worrying about shareholders and stock prices.
So based. Deadlines are the death of creativity.
And once the team moved from Chicago to the Microsoft campus in Redmond, Washington, they started to meet Microsoft execs who didn't exactly jive with Bungie's way of life. For Bungie, it was all about being creative, trying new things, and having fun.
Let me see this team.
Way of life. For Bungie, it was all...
No women. I'm just saying.
all about being creative, trying new things, and having fun. For Microsoft, making games was all about money, streamlining the creative process into an assembly line to create and sell content. Typically, when acquiring a new company, Microsoft would absorb them into their way of life. For Bungie, that meant putting everyone on the same floor of some unmarked office building, having them file into their identical cubicles on Monday morning, and telling them to slave away to finish the game before the end of the quarter. But Bungie wasn't about to be another cog in the machine. Bungie made it clear to their new employers that they were different from the other studios that came before them. If Halo was going to get finished, it was going to be on their own terms. Receiving the message loud.
And you know what they did? They created a masterpiece.
Loud and clear, Microsoft backed off and let the team get to work. With Microsoft off their backs, it was time to focus on finishing Halo. Step 1 was to figure out what kind of game it was going to be. Originally, they envisioned an RTS and then a third-person shooter before finally landing on the first-person shooter we know today. This would turn out to be the right choice. Players were put right in the middle of the action, meleeing elites, hopping into vehicles, and seeing through the eyes of Master Chief. With the incredible 3D graphics, the open world level designs, and the iconic soundtrack and story, creating an FPS felt like the right choice. And when Halo released alongside the original Xbox on November 15th, 2001, people were blown away. Halo sold over 1 million units in its first few months, and Microsoft immediately asked Bungie to start working on a sequel. Eager to continue building on the universe they just created, they agreed, but had to reconsider their position.
Halo 2? Just take me back. Just put me in a cryo chamber like Chief. We had no idea how good we had it.
Because they didn't receive nearly as much money from the first game's success as they had expected. Apparently, Microsoft wasn't big on profit sharing, and if Bungie figured out a way to negotiate out of their contract, they could go back to being independent and potentially make a lot more money. But Microsoft knew they had something special and wanted to make sure Bungie stayed with the company. So, for Halo 2, they went to the negotiating table. Bungie knew they had a lot of leverage given the success of the first game, but needed some help dealing with Microsoft. So, they hired someone they thought would be the perfect fit for the job, a Microsoft exec named Pete Parsons. But this new employee had an agenda of his own, and one day, way down the line, he'd be the reason for Bungie's downfall.
Pete! Why?
For now though, he was just the new guy. In the 90s, Pete was the director of Xbox game marketing. During the
Bill Gates called me the N-word.
development of Halo CE, he apparently fell in love with what Bungie was doing and wanted to get involved. So he applied for the role of studio manager, and given his experience at Microsoft, he felt like the perfect fit. He was hired in 2002 and would be the new person dealing with Microsoft on Bungie's behalf, discussing things like marketing, planning.
See, I bet he didn't even beat the campaign on Legendary. I bet he didn't even find all the skulls. I bet he had 0 gamer score.
And negotiating. For Halo 2, Bungie wanted assurances that their hard work wouldn't just be to line the pockets of Microsoft. They wanted their cut, especially if the game was successful. So, Microsoft agreed to work something out. Second, Parsons had to deal with Microsoft's unrealistic expectations for how long it would take to finish the game. Everything about Halo 2 was going to be bigger, better, and shinier, but they would—
I mean, this is where competitive Halo was born. Some of the best Halo 3 players were the Halo 2 sweats.
need more time and resources to accomplish them.
If you go on Master Chief Collection, you will still find lobbies in Halo 2. People that have never stopped playing the game. I'm the same way, but with Halo 3.
Microsoft initially wanted Halo 2 to release in 2002, less than 1 year after Halo Combat Evolved. The Bungie team made it clear that this would be impossible, and if Halo 2 is going to be a proper sequel, they'd need a lot more time than that.
More time. Yeah, everybody needs a lot more time.
They convinced Microsoft to extend the deadline to 2004. It wasn't much time by today's standards, but it was enough that the team felt like
I mean, this is kind of the microcosm that is explaining the death of modern gaming. You need skilled developers who are passionate, that are not weighed down by cultural nonsense like DEI and fucking arbitrary quotas. They need to say no to shareholder value until the product is perfect. It's not hard. It's not hard. It's really not rocket science. You see the parallels with Blizzard as well. Clown show. Absolute circus act.
Could breathe a little. One of the first things they started working on was a tech demo to show fans at E3 2003. And what they created, well, it blew people out of their seats.
Yeah, just look at FromSoft. Elden Ring. Magnum opus.
But the demo they created was smoke and mirrors. The Bungie team had gotten so excited to show off all the new things their engine could do, things like dynamic lighting and revamped physics, that they got a little carried away. The demo was too good, and it would be impossible for them to create a full game that would live up to those standards. But they had to get it done, and Parsons began cracking the whip. He made it clear that there would be no deadline extensions, no canceling the project, and no lifeboat. Halo 2 was going to get finished whether the team liked it or not. What followed was one of the most infamous crunches in game development history. The team essentially lived at the studio, working day and night, and the devs nearly killed themselves trying to get the game out the door.
So based.
Parsons, as studio manager, was blamed for the lack of planning that led to the inhumane work conditions, but the Bungie team, against all odds, managed to pull it off.
They stuck the landing.
When Halo 2 released, it was to resounding applause. The fans loved it. The critics loved it. It sold 2.4 million copies and generated more than $125 million in its first 24 hours. Microsoft was making money hand over fist, and it looked like the profit sharing.
Like, I don't get it. People scratch their heads. They're like, whoa, how do this is what you do, okay? You stay silent. You cook in the shadows. Conjure up a beautiful game. Then, do a physical release. GameStop, Best Buy, whatever your go-to thing is, right? You need to create demand and hype. You need to engage with the community. There was a culture around Halo. You need to parasocial max and lean into that. Hire a Master Chief mascot. Sure. None of this non-physical disc bullshit where you download it from the cloud and after you're done downloading it, spending 4 hours because you have Chinese internet connection. You have to patch update, which is another 4 gigabytes. No battle pass. No. Everything is based off merit, okay? Achievements will unlock cosmetics. And don't get too carried away with the cosmetics either. Sure, make cool shit, but actually have it require effort so then the value is there. Paying to win is not fun in a video game. The cool thing about Halo 3 was that the cosmetics were unlockable by anyone. Play the campaign, find all the skulls, boom, Hayabusa armor. Complete all 7 Vidmaster challenges. Get the forbidden, the legendary Recon armor. Dude, when I got Recon armor, I had a boner that lasted 4 days straight. Okay? Also, another cool little quirky thing, back when there was humanity behind Bungie, you'd be in a lobby and you see a guy with not only Recon armor, but a flaming helmet. Okay? People would whisper about the fact that a Bungie dev would be in the game with you, and yeah, sure enough, you'd fucking see a dude with a flaming helmet. Forge mode, custom games, file share. They came out with Instagram before Instagram was a thing. You would look at other people's profiles, and you could have clips, pictures, and maps, all downloadable. Dude, don't even, the blueprint is there.
Deal they made with Microsoft would make everyone at Bungie filthy rich. Except for one thing. Microsoft backed out of the arrangement. The Bungie team was furious. Microsoft had lied to them. They refused to pay them what they had promised, and even worse, they were asking for yet another Halo game. Bungie was torn. They'd just been betrayed and were ready to walk away for real, but they also felt they at least had to finish Halo 3 for the sake of their fans. They powered through the development of Halo 3, a much smoother affair than Halo 2, and what they came out with was, well, one of the greatest FPS games ever made.
The best FPS game ever made. Oh!
Halo 3 was lauded for its story, its multiplayer, its Forge and theater modes. It was breaking sales records.
Bro, I still play it on Twitch, okay? I'm still cranking headshots on Guardian.
Left, right, and center, and proved the power of the brand new Xbox 360. But, back at the studio, things couldn't have been worse. In the months before Halo 3's release, the team was unable to finalize a deal with Microsoft. Parsons was failing to make headway on negotiations, and 2 of the most important people working on Halo 3, founder Jason Jones and art designer Marcus Lato, straight up quit before being convinced
And
to
we're actually still running community Halo nights with the boys if you're in the Third Eye Global Network.
come back to the table. As a show of solidarity, Parsons also offered to resign if he couldn't secure a deal. After some heated debate with other members of the team, Jones and Leto were convinced to stay. However, when the group was deciding what to do with Pete Parsons, a few members believed he'd been double dealing, playing Bungie to help out Microsoft.
Oh my god! At 2, Pete? You're gonna do us like that?
So they took him up on his offer to resign, saying goodbye to Parsons with a pizza party. With Parsons gone, Microsoft realized Bungie was serious about leaving, and the two parties finalized a deal on July 7th, 2007. The deal said that Bungie would develop 2 more Halo games, Halo 3 ODST and Halo Reach,
Bangers. Bangers!
before leaving to become independent and hand off the Halo IP to the newly founded 343 Industries
Disgusting. 343 Perpetual L.
in 2010. Microsoft would remain as a minority equity interest for the next few years as Bungie transitioned away. The deal was pretty good, but not being allowed to take the Halo IP with them is a decision many lament to this day. As Halo composer Marty O'Donnell put it,
"We should be independent. We should own our own IP. We should never let a big corporation own the intellectual property that we're creating. As creators, we should
Killed him. They killed our boy, dude. They killed Chief in cold blood.
own our intellectual property."
when the news broke, fans were shocked. But even more shocking was what came next. But before we get into that, do you hear that? Do you know what that is? That's the most wonderful sound in the world. That's the sound. Right now, shock was yet to come. In 2010,
That's the sound of a mechanical keyboard just spontaneously hitting the forward arrow.
Bungie signed a new contract with one of Microsoft's biggest competitors, Activision. The contract was a 10-year, $500 million deal that would allow Bungie to have creative control over their new game and retain ownership of the new Destiny
It's just the gayest game ever.
IP. In exchange, Activision would be in charge of all publishing and marketing for the game, allowing the creative team at Bungie.
I remember Destiny came out and I tried to force myself to like it because it was, it's Bungie. I was like, Bungie, please, please, I want your new game to be good. No.
Focus on making the game. But this new partnership wasn't all sunshine and flowers. Sure, Bungie had managed to get away from Microsoft, but much like the Flood in Halo, they had some parasites aboard the ship who were destroying them from the
Destiny lied to me. They gave me a half-made piece of shit. That's right.
inside. One of those was Harold Ryan. Ryan was a Microsoft playtester in the late 90s who was hired on at Bungie around the same time as Pete Parsons. When Parsons resigned in 2006, Ryan took over his role as Bungie's studio manager. After the release of Halo 3, he was promoted to company CEO and would be in charge of overseeing ODST, Reach, and the upcoming game Destiny. To help get all of these projects off the ground, Bungie needed a marketing wizard who understood the games they were making. Up until this point, Marty O'Donnell had been doing the job, but he was struggling a little bit. So Ryan hired the only person he could think of, Pete Parsons.
Oh, dude, get him out!
As you'd expect, many veterans at Bungie were worried about the move, but justified it by saying that Parsons was a phenomenal marketer who would help them sell their games. Plus, with Bungie leaving Microsoft, there wouldn't be any conflict of interest. Still, it was hard to ignore the fact that Bungie suddenly had 2 ex-Microsoft employees in the highest position of the company. And once the deal with Activision was signed in 2010, it became clear that Microsoft's profits-first culture had infected Bungie. It started in 2011. With their newfound freedom, Bungie could take their new game in whatever direction they wanted. Unfortunately, not everyone was aligned, and divisions started to form. On one side, there were the business guys like Ryan and Parsons. On the other were the veteran creators.
I just gotta hit him with this real quick.
Welcome to Reach, scumbag.
You will. Damn.
It's been an honor, sir. Woman! How about you?
Just had to hit him with that. Just gotta hit him with the Emil edit.
Creatives who actually made the games. Jamie Griesmer, the architect of Halo CE's 30 Seconds of Fun, Joe Staten, the man who wrote the Halo trilogy, Paul Bertone, design director, Marcus Lato, art director, and Martin O'Donnell, game composer and Bungie founder. Starting in 2011, in the midst of working on Destiny 1, those on the creative side of things started leaving the company rather unexpectedly. The first to leave was Jamie Griesmer. He cited burnout and frustration at the lack of direction Bungie had for Destiny 1. This was followed by Paul Bertone in 2012, then
Good, leave. They didn't care about you.
Joe Staten in 2013,
They were planning to run the company into the ground.
and finally, Marcus Lato quit in 2014, citing the crunch culture fostered by Pete Parsons as one of the main reasons for his leaving.
I'm like, wait, did we just get rid of the very best designer we've ever had? And he goes, yeah, we did. I'm like, okay, how does that make sense? Like, our total design...
I have a soft spot for these old head game developers that were just so passionate about video games as a medium. They just want to make good games. And they will. They will. Just give them time.
power, went from here down to here and with no plan on fixing the deficit. And he's like, yeah, you're right.
But it gets even worse. These creatives, some of whom made up Bungie's board of directors, began disappearing one by one, leaving people scratching their heads. One of those reasons was the fact that they had founder stock from when the company went independent in 2010, which would vest if they stayed with the company for a certain period of time. Rather than let these veterans have their founder stock, those we just listed were likely offered separation deals where they would be paid X amount of money in exchange for their resignation. On top of having the stock returned to Bungie, these deals had the added benefit of letting Ryan and Parsons stack the board of directors in their favor. The plan was working, and they just had one more person to get rid of, Marty O'Donnell. But he wouldn't back down so easily. Seeing what was happening to those around him, Marty refused to
Giga Chad!
accept any sort of deal, essentially daring the leadership to fire him. When they did fire him in 2014, he retaliated with a lawsuit, saying he was wrongfully let go
Let's go. Let's go, Marty.
and was due his founder stock. Not long after, he won the suit, confirming for many what was happening behind closed doors. Sadly, by 2014,
He went out spiritually dying for what he believed in.
the core Bungie creatives who carried Halo through
This guy right here. You can find this guy in one of the last missions in Halo 3. Easter egg. In the cave. Real ones know.
the 2000s were mostly gone. Ryan and Parsons were now firmly in control of the company's direction. Thankfully, people were excited for their new game, whatever it would be.
It's Bungie co-founder Jason Jones. Remember when they would add Easter eggs, bro? Remember when games actually had Easter eggs, bro? Fun, quirky little wholesome Chungus moments for people to discover.
Macca's.
I'm going to take a running start and then jump as far as they can. The other person will have to jump off their head at the very peak of their jump and get onto this ledge. Now wait until the next person spawns in and then take turns trying to jump across this gap and land onto that platform. Unfortunately, both of us were unable to do this for our first few tries, but because we're taking turns, final little area. And now that you've jumped across, you should be able to find this Easter egg. That's Jason Jones, one of the co-founders of Bungie. This Easter egg was also in Halo 2, but this is it in Halo 3, and this will...
Damn, dude.
be. Following a huge marketing campaign from Activision, Destiny broke records with over 4 million pre-orders and made more than $500 million on day one. The game looked
How?
stunning. The gunplay felt great, and the guys that made Halo just hit another home run. At least, that's what it seemed like on day one. It quickly became apparent that the game wasn't quite finished when it came out. Missions were cut and pasted repetitively. The game's story was fractured, with much of the lore hidden behind grimoire cards that were only viewable on Bungie's website. The game's main storyline had about 8 hours of total gameplay. This was not the massive MMO shared world experience that Bungie had promised, and the game did not feel finished. Many pointed fingers at Activision for pushing Destiny out the door before it was done. And of course, that was true. Activision during this time was known for caring about one thing and one thing only.
Money!
But there was other turmoil behind the scenes that made it difficult to finish the game on time. Destiny's development was fraught with issues, including the game's story being axed and
It didn't have the oomph. No passion. No life force.
pasted back together, and veterans leaving left, right, and center. Still, Destiny was a commercial success, and after several DLCs, the game started to take shape.
I feel like Destiny is one of the crucial moments in gaming where everything started to blur together and just look like Concord and Overwatch. Just recycled assets that they're not different.
Bungie fleshed the story out, they introduced raids and a ton of other story elements, and it finally looked like
It's the death of art design. Everything is this weird futuristic dystopian cyber. It's just junk.
Destiny was going to reach its full potential. But then, just when Bungie looked like they were about to redeem their game, two things happened. First, in 2016, Ryan stepped down as CEO, leaving the position to be filled by the one man we hoped would never sit on the throne, Pete Parsons. But second, they did something that
I'd love a shooter game that wasn't set in the year 5 million.
really pissed players off. They announced that they were ending Destiny 1. This was a punch in the face for many players. They'd spent a lot of time in Destiny 1 progressing their characters, grinding for loot, and expecting the game to last for, well, more than 3 years. Destiny was a live service game, which meant people would, over a period of time, pay for DLCs and other updates with the expectation that the game would stay online. The understanding is that all the time and money they invest would carry over a period of years. Unfortunately, there was money to be made. The justification was that Destiny 1's game engine had some limitations that made it difficult for Bungie to keep updating the game, especially with the Xbox Series X and PS5 on the horizon. So, the only option was to rebuild the game in a new, modified engine. However, that meant a new, full-price game with all progression from the original being reset. Needless to say,
Destiny 2 is here.
people weren't too happy. But this was always the plan. Just 2 months after Destiny 1's release, Activision Publishing CEO Eric Hirschberg said in an interview, quote, "Work had already begun on future expansion packs, as well as on our next full game release. They revamped the progression system and put in a ton of new microtransactions, in-game currencies, expensive cosmetics in the..."
This looks like a mobile game. What in the Raid Shadow Legends is going on here?
Everstore, tons of grinding. It felt like players were being forced to start over from level 1 so that Bungie and Activision could cash in on restarting their progression. And it only got worse as the years dragged on. Eventually, it became apparent that despite a large player base, Destiny 2 wasn't the cash cow they had hoped for. The Forsaken expansion in 2018 was critically acclaimed by fans, but Activision labeled it as a commercial failure. With Activision's COO saying
I think microtransactions just ruined everything. I swear to God. Everything in gaming has become slop, sludge. It's too much. Maybe I'm getting older. I'm level 27 now. I can't compete with these Zoomers. Dopamine being spiked every 3 seconds.
Destiny 2, quote, was not meeting financial expectations. So, Activision and Bungie went into talks about parting ways. A few months later, and with some help, Pete Parsons negotiated with NetEase for a $100 million investment, and Bungie broke away from Activision in early 2019. From 2019
I'm too straight for the current culture of video games.
to 2022, Bungie was on a redemption tour, with many attributing it to their independence. But the honeymoon wouldn't last. Once again, after only 3 years of independence, Bungie started running out of money. Players who had been around for years were having the time of their lives, but the game wasn't bringing in new players, and therefore actually wasn't making that much money. Fortunately, someone had their eye on Bungie for quite some time. Sony offered Parsons $3.6 billion to buy them out, despite a history of being burned by Microsoft and oppressed by Activision.
3.6 billion?
And despite knowing that this kind of thing usually ends badly, Parsons simply could not say no to that much money. So, for the third time,
Dude, this guy's my number one op. Holy shit.
Bungie was sold to the highest bidder. Thankfully, this acquisition felt much more equitable for Bungie. They wouldn't be beholden to developing exclusively for the PlayStation, they would be allowed to keep the Destiny IP and own any new IPs in the future, and there wouldn't be any layoffs. Sony viewed Bungie as a key asset that would be a huge part of their 10-year live service plan, so they set aside $1.2 billion and put it towards employee retention. Basically, paying employees extra not to leave the company. In an industry like video games, this was a breath of fresh air. People were expecting a huge wave of layoffs, so it was a relief to see Sony welcoming them in with open arms. But it wasn't Sony they had to worry about, because the call was coming from inside the house. In 2023, Destiny 2's The Final Shape DLC and Marathon were both delayed.
Bro, who's playing this game? Bunch of bots?
Due to a wave of layoffs initiated by Pete Parsons. Parsons took to Twitter to share his condolences for those he just laid off, claiming that the commercial failure of D2's Lightfall DLC was part of the reason. Just a year prior, Sony had put $1.2 billion aside to keeping everyone around, and none of that money went into, well, keeping everyone around. But this was
ChatGPT loves Destiny 2. So it seems.
a drop in the bucket
Destiny had a lot of sunken cost fallacy players. You hate to see it. Because isn't it like inherently so sweaty with the grind?
compared to what happened in 2024. The Final Shape would be the latest DLC for Destiny 2. Prior to its release, many felt that its success would dictate whether Bungie would have another round of layoffs or not. Thankfully,
even the names are soy. Like, what the fuck is Lightfall? Babe, let's play Lightfall. There's beauty in the simplicity. Halo. Destiny Expansion Pack DLC. Lightfall. The Legend of Lymeria. Like, too much!
it ended up being both commercially
It's too much.
and critically a smash hit. With all sorts of money coming in, employees finally felt like they were safe. So imagine their surprise when just 2 months later, on July 30th, 17% of the company,
What these games don't get in art design and I guess lore is that I have to care about the world in the first place. You can't throw me into the world and expect me to give a shit about something with this extravagant name when there's no substance behind it. What is Destiny? It's got nothing.
aka 220 employees, were
It was idiotic. You basically grind it out to get maxed and do the same shit missions or PvP, and then 4 months later it didn't matter because new gear dropped. Oh, so it's like, wow.
laid off with no warning. Some were told in short meetings and asked not to spread it around.
That's how I felt about Destiny. What is the story? It's true. Master Chief in Halo. A giga-cracked, juiced super soldier murdering the Covenant and the Flood. And he's got a hot hologram implanted in his forehead. It's pretty simple. You're saving humanity by purging the evil.
Some discovered they were let go when they tried to sign in the next morning and found themselves locked out of their accounts. Parsons put out his own condolences, saying, quote, "Today is a sad day at Bungie as we say goodbye to colleagues who have all made a significant impact."
Just look at Doom. Same thing. The new Doom Dark Ages is very similar to Halo 3's campaign in that the instructions are to kill the enemy and get from point A to point B.
Impact on our studio. It was incredibly tone deaf, given the fact that he was the one who initiated the layoffs in the first place. To make matters worse, employees were intentionally let go on the 30th of the month so Bungie wouldn't have to pay for their benefits. The exact same thing they did 1 year prior during the last round of layoffs. Some were even terminated a week before their maternity leave kicked in. And as though history were repeating itself, the whole issue of founders stock came back into play. After going independent again, certain veterans had stock with vested interest, saying if they stayed with the company until X date, they would receive a certain amount of shares as compensation. However, if they left the company for whatever reason, being laid off included, that stock would be forfeited and restored to Bungie the company. Throughout 2023 and 2024, Plenty of veterans said goodbye to Bungie. Destiny 2 director Joe Blackthorne passed on the torch. Game director Chris Barrett was
Imagine working for Bungie and you're on the Destiny team. You weren't even on the Halo team. Ew.
fired, but this round of layoffs targeted some of the most important and most experienced devs at the company. Mark Noseworthy, who worked on Reach and both Destinies, Luke Smith, who is one of Bungie's most important devs since the Halo days, and Michael Salvatore, Marty O'Donnell's co-composer on both Halo and Destiny. It's unclear if they were laid off or if they took separation deals like the ones back in the early 2010s, but either way, 3 of the last remaining Bungie veterans were all gone within days of each other. The blame fell squarely on Pete Parsons. It was his decision to downsize and put people out of a job. Sony had tried to keep people around, but Bungie had initiated the layoffs. And throughout it all, Parsons spent more than $2 million on vintage cars.
You know what's sad? I feel like there was a limited pool of absolutely dialed gamer men that put their blood, sweat, and tears into laying the foundation of the best video games of the early 2000s. That they're just extinct now. You blew it. We fucking blew it. Now we have new age, like, I don't even know what to call this posse, this guild of cringe developers.
Yikes. These layoffs could not have come at a worse time. Bungie was gearing up to unveil a massive project.
You know that meme where it's like, here's the thing, we forgot how to do it? No, we actually did. We forgot how to make games like Halo, like the OG Call of Duties, like World of Warcraft.
They'd been working on for the past few years, but now they were missing almost 1/5 of their workforce. The game is called Marathon. Bungie released a few teasers throughout 2024, and on April 12th,
Time for this shit show.
2025, the world finally got its first look at Marathon's gameplay.
Marathon is a team-based extraction shooter
I was excited.
set around the mysterious and cutthroat world of Tau Ceti 4.
Ahead of the reveal, tons of creators were given early access to play the game and give viewers their thoughts. Unfortunately, the reception wasn't what Bungie had hoped for.
It seems like you're playing an extraction shooter that to me sometimes feels like a battle royale, and that's kind of it.
More and more information started coming out about it, and now I'm just like, it's not yet at disappointment, but it's more so towards confusion.
$40 for a live service game with all of the trappings.
I don't want these fancy schmancy extraction shooter, battle royale, victory royale. No. Give me a neutral, good map that is unique. Put power weapons on timers throughout, and the best to 25 or 50. What about Oddball? What about Griffball? What about Capture the Flag? What about King of the Hill? What about VIP? Oh, wait. We already had it. It was called Halo.
No proximity chat? What are you guys thinking?
The hype for the cinematic trailer in 2024 was all but dead, and this new extraction shooter felt like it was already late to the party. The issues are due to Bungie being in a leadership crisis.
Just give me a good sandbox shooter, bro. I don't want to be placed on an island and have to run for 15 minutes just to get shot from behind.
All of the veterans who made Halo and Destiny are basically gone, and many feel that Bungie employees are just
I told you. The old guard is dead. The veterans are gone.
staying to get the game out the door and plan to leave as soon as it releases. With so many key members gone from the company over the last 2 years, it's a wonder who's still around to develop it.
No one.
But the big question is, what will happen to Pete Parsons? Gamers from
He'll retire into the sunset on his millions of dollars, ruining everything good about this world.
all around the world are calling for him to step down and be held accountable for what's happening at Bungie, but as we all know, that doesn't happen to CEOs. More than likely,
Oh, I can't wait for Marathon Pro to come out.
if Marathon fails, Parsons
Can't wait to see you guys with my new battle pass.
and the rest of the shareholders will be laughing to the bank while us players sit here and wonder, whatever happened
This is why you need to still be playing Halo 3.
to the company that made Halo? Thanks again to War Thunder for sponsoring.
Get me out. Get me out!